That TV upstairs is loud, but whatever. Hello, I'm sayakatcosplay and welcome to... People kept asking me if I was gonna do it, so I did it. Hi. I made the Jane Foster Thor breastplate from the new Love and Thunder movie that's coming out in July, I believe. Yes. Anyway, I made this and I made a pattern and I put it on my web store. It's cheaper in my Ko-fi if you would like to make one for yourself. And also belts. And there's a whole bunch of other patterns that I now have up for Jane Foster Thor. If you want to check them out and do me a support, you can do that. Also, I'm going to show you how I made this and the belt. And if you'd like to make one for yourself and follow along, here we go. Like with all of these videos that I've made for tutorials, the first step is to make a pattern. And if you don't want to do this for yourself, I have the pattern listed on my Etsy and my Ko-fi. I used the breastplate pattern that I had already made for Sylvie, and I cut out the base and put it together in 6mm foam to use this to make a pattern on. I usually pattern on my dress form, but there is a different costume currently living on my dress form, and I didn't feel like taking it off. This is like a new level of lazy. But anyway, I cut out that breastplate base and then I just put tape over one side. I only ever make one side of a pattern because I'm lazy. And also you only need to make one side of the pattern because you're just going to duplicate it on the other side. So I fully cover everything in tape and then get to patterning. The Jane Foster Thor has a different sized base than the Sylvie breastplate. So I added paper in places where I needed to add backing to the tape and make the shape a little bit different. And I just drew everything on. And then I got the pattern and cut everything out. And so what I do with these tape patterns is I'll at first cut out the base shape. I'll put down my registration marks, cut the base shape out, and then I put the pattern back together to cut out all of the detail bits. So on the digital pattern, there is a base pattern and then all the detail bits. But when I'm working with this first version of the pattern, I have to do some creative putting back together of things to get all the pieces that I need. Now that the pattern is done, it's time to trace and cut all the things. I'm going to start with the base first. I'm cutting this out of 4mm foam. Usually I like to use 6mm for armor, but because this is going to be such a layered piece, I don't want the base to be too thick. So I'm going to use 4mm. I would suggest 4mm for the base. You can use 6 if you want it to be a little bit thicker, but this is what I'm doing. So I'm going to cut out the base pieces and put the base together, give it a kind of initial shaping with a heat gun, and then I'm going to start the very time-intensive process of cutting out all the details. The details are going to be cut either from 2mm or 4mm foam, and some of these are going to be layered. Some of these are just going to be detail carved, and there's going to be a wide variety of just glue and layering and more glue and layering more glue. So cut out the base, get it shaped, put it together, not in that order, and then it's time to put all the details on. The layering is where this thing really comes to life, and it is what makes the breastplate look like Jane Foster Thor. Hello, kitty. You're cute, but you're interrupting my voiceover. Anyway, the layers are going to be cut, like I said, either out of 2mm or 4mm foam, and I indicate what to cut, what pieces to cut out of what thickness of foam on the pattern, and I also have adjusted the pattern on the digital version to make the pieces either one piece or two pieces to put this together. So that's all on the digital pattern. So what you're seeing me do is going to be a little bit different from how the digital pattern actually looks and works. But cut everything out, get everything traced out, cut everything out, and then get ready for the glue-a-thon. Here is your reminder to always use a fume respirator if you are gluing with barge. Barge is stinky, it's toxic, it's not great to inhale those fumes, so always use a fume respirator in a well-ventilated area when working with barge contact cement. I'm using a combination of barge and hot glue for this. I find that gluing the details on with hot glue is just a little bit faster. If you want to use barge for everything, you can. And so I'm just going to start gluing on the layers from the top down. This is important because this makes it so that I know where everything is going and it flows and it goes from the top down. I'm not going willy-nilly and just placing the pieces on. This allows me to place everything in order and to make sure that everything fits correctly and abuts correctly to the piece on top. So when gluing this together, I do recommend starting from the top down just to make sure everything fits well. The one thing that you may run into when making this piece is that when you cut out the foam pieces, they tend to cut a little bit bigger than the pattern pieces. And even just a few millimeters here and there adds up as you're going down. So make sure when you're cutting the things out to cut as accurately as possible. And then when you're gluing together, if you find that the things are starting to really kind of be too big for the base, go back and trim up the detail pieces. Does that make sense? I hope so. Once everything is glued on, I go and heat shape it more, and I also heat it to open up all of the carve detail lines. I think at some point my battery died, so I don't have footage of all of the gluing process, but I have, I think, a good chunk of it, so you can kind of get an idea of how I went about this process. And there you have it, one completed Jane Foster Thor breastplate. To wear this, I would go ahead and add strapping to the shoulders and sides, and it's wearable, you know, after you paint it and stuff. On to the next piece of this tutorial, which is the belt. This is constructed in a very similar manner to the breastplate. I did not take any footage of me making the pattern, but I did this flat on newspaper because I always use newspaper. If you're new here, hi, I use newspaper to make patterns if you haven't already noticed. If you've been here before, hey, it's the newspaper. So I'm just gonna trace the belt base onto 4mm foam, and I'm gonna layer 2mm details over all of this except for the circles, which are going to be 4mm. So I go ahead and trace this all out, cut it all out, and glue it together. This is basically just layering layers together. It's pretty straightforward, I hope. With the breastplate and this belt, because I was creating for patterns and not for a finished piece, I didn't add necessarily all the details on. There's a lot of little rivet details that I didn't add on. If you're going to make this for yourself, I would recommend to use googly eyes. These are great. Your pieces will make fun noises when you wear them, and they make really fantastic fake rivets. You can also make these out of little pieces of foam, but cutting circles, especially tiny circles, is the worst. So just go get yourself some googlies and make yourself little rivets with those. Well, that's pretty much it for voiceover me. I'm going to leave you with the rest of the making of footage. I hope you enjoyed, and if you want to make this for yourself, again, I have these patterns listed on my Etsy and Ko-fi, and my collaborator, Sayakatcosplay, is also going to be making a laser cut kit for these things as well, so keep your eye out if you don't want to cut this out for yourself, because that takes forever. Enjoy! Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and tutorial. If you would like to see more tutorials, I have a plethora of them on my channel. You can go check those out. Don't forget to leave a comment if you have any questions. Maybe thumbs up, maybe subscribe. I'll see you folks in the next video.